Hello and welcome to Writers Chat. My name is Andrea Freeman and I'm with Caroline Topperman, my friend and colleague. Today's chat is going to be a very intense topic, imposter syndrome. Now, this is something that I know personally I didn't really know about at first, didn't understand it, couldn't relate to it, heard it everywhere, but it is real. It is something that is out there and everyone does experience it differently, different levels, different frequencies, different intensities. And as writers, we're going to be talking about it on that level because you can have this with anything that's going on in your life. Yeah. So it's not just being a writer, but we're going to talk about our experiences with it, how we perceive it, how we have navigated it, and what works for us and how we get through it, because it doesn't really go away. It's there, pops up different every time, but the hope is that you understand it, like I said, a little bit more each time, and you find new ways to get through it. Maybe you do heal from it, but we are here to just help you, again, as writers, authors, what works for us. Maybe you can adopt some of our techniques.
I mean, so I guess we should cover too, like what is it?
Yes.
And I mean, imposter syndrome really is, I mean, the name speaks for itself, but it really is, it's that feeling that you're not good enough. It's that feeling that you only got to where you are with luck. And obviously the worst part, for me at least, the worst part of it is that feeling that everybody's going to know. Everybody's going to figure out that I don't really know what I'm doing. Yeah. And it's funny because, I when I was training people, so this was even way before I really got into full-time writing. I always had that, even though I knew what I was talking about. I had so much training. I was really good at my job. Mm-hmm. And still I had that feeling that it needed to be perfect, that I had to know everything, and that people would figure out that I really didn't know what I was doing. Even though I did. So it took a long time for me to get past it there. And now, I mean, if you just ask me about fitness or something, I'll be like, oh yeah, I know that, no problem. And when I transitioned into full-time writing, it's funny because it followed me there in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah, this is what I'm saying. It will show up so differently depending on what it is that you're doing in your life. Yeah, like for me, like I said before, I never understood this. Like as some of you may know, besides being an author, I'm an angel guidance coach, and I work with your guardian angels. I help you connect with them, translate their messages, how they're trying to help you. I'll help you build confidence in your intuition. So in my field, that's kind of in that part of me, that's kind of where like I first started to hear about it. And I'm like, what the hell is this? I have like no idea. I'm seeing it, memes galore. I'm like, okay. So then I started to like tap into it more, like research. And I'm like, I don't think I have this. This isn't me. I don't feel that. I don't do these things. And then bam, like mid to end of last year into the beginning of this year, like ripped apart, like shredded, strewn about, just the intensity of I'm shit. Like that's just kind of like what it felt like.
Yeah.
So like for me, like the way, because like I said, everyone interprets it differently. So I actually wrote notes because like I don't want to forget, because these are like things I think, like I said, people are gonna. There's not one way to describe it, because I love what you had mentioned too, what you feel about it, because those are like some of the things as well. I think for me, like and it's funny because I was mapping this out. It's almost like where does it start? Like where are the triggers?
Yeah.
Because I think that's the thing too. Like the reason why, and I was thinking about this too, like when you think, oh, it's not me, I would never feel that way. It's almost like trauma. Like we sometimes think trauma has to be this ginormous thing that happens to you, but it could be like the tiniest thing that may or may not be related to, but it's setting something off.
And also, I mean, yes, like Absolutely, 100%. And I think it actually is even sometimes amplified when you're a writer and you're trying to submit, but you're getting rejections,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not, I mean, and it's specifically to writers, because we spend so much time on our own. And
Mm-hmm.
then you sort of come up for breath, see what your peers are doing, see what's going on, and suddenly it hits you. It's not that we work and work and work and then it kind of comes on slowly, like I think it does in certain other industries, where because we're so solitary
Yeah.
for big parts of our jobs,
Yeah.
and then we come up for air, and then it's like, oh wait, how did they get published, or
Yes.
how did they do this, or what do they have, wait a sec, like when did that happen, how did that happen?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you sort of turn in on yourself, and that's when you can get one of the big flare-ups for it.
Yeah. I had that as one of my points too, because, and you mentioned it too, you try not to compare yourself. Because we're going to talk about that in a bit, like how do
Yeah.
you combat this? But, you look at, oh my God, like, again, we don't know, like, everything looks all pretty on social media, but we don't know like what everybody literally goes
Mm.
through that finally shows their final product. But, sometimes, yeah, they're doing all the things and you're like, oh my God, I don't know if I have time to promote my work like that, or to even have the writing process like that. So it becomes this overwhelming thing of like all the things you have to do. And that's what I was thinking. Like the way this gets triggered for me is like you just overwhelm yourself with so much. You feel like you have to do it all. The stress of the bullet points, especially as a writer, because as we know, we're not just writing, we do have to market, which is not fun. We talk about that a lot too. We'll talk more about marketing, but it's like, and even like now, like even before, like this week, I'm like stressing as I know, like, oh my God, there's still marketing I have yet touched,
Yeah.
because I'm trying to like, get my poetry book together here. And so it's like, to me, I notice like that's where it starts. And like the feedback, like when there's like, sometimes you feel like you're not in front of the right audience,
Yeah.
or not enough people to see you. And so you perceive that as you suck, or
True.
you're
It's
not
true.
right, you're not doing it
Yeah.
right. So you think like, this is just not going to work for me. I should give up, which I have to say, like, there are times, I have to say sometimes not so much my writing, but the other part of me too. And I do the guidance coaching, which does have writing involved in it. But sometimes I'm like, I want to give up, but then I know I don't, because then you remember like what your intentions are.
Yeah.
Um, but what was I going to say? Sometimes I feel like my stuff is outdated,
Yeah.
right? Or like it's
Yeah.
not relevant enough. So then this is like this weird chatter that like,
Because there's constant new things coming out,
yes,
right? So you
yes,
go on Facebook or anywhere, and you're in a group, and suddenly someone's like, "Hey, can you do this?" And you're like, oh, "Wait, what? When did that happen?"
mm-hmm.
And like hilariously, so this is actually a true story, really funny. So for the last little bit, they in one of the groups that I'm in, they've been talking a lot about Facebook Reels.
Mm,
And I know what they are. I've seen them, whatever, but I didn't have them on my phone.
yeah,
And everybody's like, oh, and they're having these huge discussions, and I'm suddenly like, my phone doesn't have them. It doesn't matter. Like I've updated it, I've cleared everything, reset it up again, and it didn't matter, and I just didn't have it.
yeah,
And so it was one tiny thing. And it's not that I necessarily felt full on imposter syndrome,
mm-hmm.
but because I do coach people on social media, they would expect me to walk them through it. And I was like, well, I can do it in theory, can't do it in practice because I don't have it. Um,
I can assume this is what you're talking about.
right. And so it really is that, it's that feeling, that the world is passing you by sometimes. But I just want, because I think the important thing too is that, what we said is that everybody feels it differently. So how do you get past that? So one of the things for me is, um, I don't really dwell on the people that are doing things bigger, better, whatever than I am, because um, what I do is I see them, I'll acknowledge them, but then I realize, then I sort of come back and I give myself a talking to, and I say, okay, but wait, what do you really want to do? Because it's easy to say, oh, I want to do this and I want to do this and I can do this and I can do that. But I don't really always want to do those things.
Yes, yes.
So I really try to bring it back to myself to say, okay, wait, you're on your own path.
Mm-hmm.
Stay on your path. Don't get too distracted by the shiny things. They're
Mm.
there. It's great. But really focus on what you want to do and focus at being good at what you want to be doing. Focus on giving yourself a name right there.
Right. Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. Like, it's true. Like everything works differently for everybody else. It's nice to what you're doing in your field, no matter what you're writing. If it's a book, if it's blogging, if it's even writing a script for a podcast, whatever it might be. It's good to have like, how do I say it? Like the guidelines or like some kind of like in the know structure. But you really have to, at the end of the day, just take what works for you. It's more like something in the background, and you have to do what vibes with you, and make it be like somewhat of a signpost or navigation thing to like where you are on this road, but that it's not set in stone. It's not something that should rule your life or rule your day. And it's hard because, again, there are time frames when it comes to writing different things. But you and I think we've talked about this in other chats, that there's a time and a place for everything. Like sometimes people are like, oh, well, you can just, I think we talked about this. We could just write anywhere. Like, it's easy. Like, and it frustrates us because it's like, yeah, we are people that do get inspired. There's muses everywhere, but there is a certain vibe that we are connecting with, and that it doesn't just happen like that. We have to respect, like, are we feeling more of like research today, or the creation part, or the marketing part, or, so it's just can't get lost in that. I know for me too, what gets me with the imposter syndrome too is like if I have so many goals on paper and some of them are still not sprouting legs and going somewhere, like that just it pisses me off, because it's like another form of it too, where you wouldn't think it would be, but it's just you feel like, well, you're just like, these are just hobbies, like you're just doing this. Not that saying writing as a hobby is not good, but if you are trying to switch it over to something that you do want to knowingly do professionally, you get annoyed because you're like, no, I really want to take this somewhere else. It's not just something I'm hiding or, that I just want for me, but I do want to put it out there.
And on the flip side of that is that idea of letting go of the feel of needing to be perfect.
Yes.
And so one of the things that I like to do is I actually like to read people's articles and blogs and things like that and see how I would write it differently or how I would make it better.
Yes.
And I'm certainly not bashing anyone. Absolutely never. But by doing this kind of exercise for myself, I realize it takes away this idea that everybody's better. And it takes away the idea that I need to be perfect. At some point, even if you publish something and there's a typo, it's not ideal. You may not love it, but you'll survive. Yeah. And so I think that for me, that's a big part of it, is that just letting go of that feeling that it has to be exactly right, because at the end of the day, no one's going to care that much. And actually that comes back to, that's a part of a lesson that I learned when I was performing, when I was dancing, because you were always told, you made a mistake, but the audience doesn't. So if you keep smiling, and you don't show them, they won't know. So it's that idea, I meant for it to be that way. Thank you.
Yeah. That's so true. Especially too, if like you're speaking about your book or anything like that, like you could have a whole script of things you want to say, but like sometimes you just got to be in the moment, and that's just even better than like these bullet points that you're talking about. We talked about this. I think it was just you and I, like on our private call together, some chats back. That so last month it was Poetry Month in April, and I did my first time doing it for a full month, like poetry prompts. I did it for I think it was last year in October. I love Halloween, so I did like 2 weeks, like poetry prompts, and I also participated in Alicia Cook, one of my favorite poets, her poetry prompts, I think earlier in that year. So it was crazy. Like I did it those 2 times wasn't nervous to share, because that's the thing too. It's like, especially if you're writing poetry, it's like, or anything you're writing that you're sharing, you're like, oh my God, like, how's this going to be received?
Yeah.
I wasn't worrying about it, the prompts, those 2 times. This month, last month, when I was doing it for my poetry prompts for the poetry month, I was like, oh my God, my book is, I'm putting together my own poetry book. Now I'm putting like pretty much a month's worth of prompts that are just raw in the moment. You don't have time to edit. You're embracing, the vibe of what it is and these little worlds you're creating. And I said to you, what if they think this is crap? Like they'd say, oh my God, like these are her prompts, like, and she's going to write a book. Like, what is this? Like, I was like, I never thought that way before, but now I'm like second guessing, like, what are you doing? Like, this is going to be fine. Like, stop this.
Oh yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, what did you have to do? You just had to close your eyes, jump in and do it, and nothing bad happened, right?
No.
I mean, I think that's the thing you have to and part of that is that so many people have it that everybody's doing it. So everybody's freaking out about their own work. They don't have time to freak out about what you're doing.
No.
And I think that, and I had a bit of that just doing this. When we decided that we were going to get off doing Instagram Live and we were going to do this, and this is a little more permanent on the internet, right? This is a little more solid. And I had the same thing. And at first I was like, I don't know. And then I thought, no, I'm just going to promote this everywhere I can. And, if someone doesn't like it, okay, fine. Don't watch. Don't give me your time.
Yeah.
But so it was that. And actually part of what helped for me, kind of flipping to that way of thinking. And it's, and just remember, it's not 100%. It's not ideal. You do fall back into it, but it was actually working with a mentor. And because she just really seems to have a lot of faith in me, and she's really encouraging.
Yeah.
And I really like that. Like this specific person, she just has a very kind of calming nature about her anyway, which is really good for me.
Right.
But just that idea of, I don't know, she just like gives me a lot of focus, and she really just keeps me going and steady. And I actually probably have 2 people like that in my life. And they keep me sort of on track for what I'm doing, so I can really see my outcome, where I want to go, what I want to do, what I want to accomplish. So I also, it ties back to what you said before. I don't feel like I'm flailing. Like I feel like there's a purpose for what I'm doing.
Yes.
And I mean, if you take a look at the first video we did to today's video, it's just the second video. I think today's video will be much better, right? We've already refined certain things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think that's it, is to remember that unless you do something really awful, which again, I can't even imagine what it would be, you're really not going to fail. Like there's really nothing you can do to go wrong.
Yes. Yes. And that's true too. Like, I mean, look, I did make a mistake on one of my prompts, but again, if you're not a good speller, you may not know, but I fixed it. But it's like, I was like, my husband caught it, and he's not usually like the reader speller, and he's like, I don't think this is the right word. I'm like, oh my God, it's everywhere. And I had to like fix it, but that's fine.
Right.
It's fine.
But I think what also happens at that point, if that kind of thing happens, as long as you're not mortified, I mean, you might be for a second, but as long as you get past that and you acknowledge it, and then you say, okay, I made a mistake, let's move on. I mean, if you were doing open heart surgery on someone, I strongly suggest you don't make a mistake. Brain surgery, the same thing. But if you make a spelling error, like, because we've never done that, nobody's ever done that in the history of the world, or put in a wrong word somewhere or said something weird, we've all done it. And as long as you can show enough humility, I would say, to like laugh at yourself, I think that actually makes you more relatable too, because then people are like, oh yeah, okay, that's kind of happened to me too. Right? Yeah. And the person who doesn't do that, the person who kind of, I don't know, makes you feel bad for making a mistake or does something, I think that person, it's like they have a problem.
Yeah. What was I going to say? No, it's okay. I wrote down the other thought I wanted to say. Well, I'll say this, maybe it'll bring me back to going back to your point about your mentor. It's a great source for accountability, because it's just like, it really does keep you on track of like your goals and what you're trying to do, and help you understand like this is where you want to be. This is where the track is going. Oh, I don't remember what I was going to say. Oh, wait, this is it. Wait, it's about the spelling. It's coming. Oh, was it? Oh, I don't know. It's floating. It's floating. It'll come back.
Okay,
It'll come back. I'm going to write this down. There's something about me not spelling and what that meant. I'll find it. So what I've discovered too, because tapping into what you said about mentors. So yes, I would during because this was really bad for me. This was bad for, like I said, end of last year to this year, what I was experiencing. So I did turn to family, friends, my mentors. And because the other part of me is I work with my guardian angels, my spirit guides, which enables me to be able to write, because this is part of like how I channel, is through working with my guides. And I have to say too, like some podcasts that I listen to that also have touched on this. This is popping up a lot lately too, from what I've been listening to. When it gets really bad, like especially like it was for me, it's just showing you that you're that close. You're that much closer to getting this done. Your big dream job, your big goal, your intention, like you are that much closer to it. You're almost there. Like don't give up on it now.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I'm sure we've heard this too, but like, your ego is like so used to the mundane and the same and the comfort level. And it's like any inch coming out of that freaks it out. So it doesn't want you to take these healthy risks, doesn't want you to step over to the other side. So when you have like that healthy nervous feeling and you feel like this is just so not you, and you just don't understand and you don't think you can do it, you're that much closer to getting this done.
And
so
you need to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
And as soon as you can sit down, take a breath, go, oh, okay, then you're like, this is actually a good thing.
Yes. Oh, I remembered it. Yes, I remembered it. So, okay. So with me not spelling right, I'm like, I said to myself, they're going to think I'm stupid. They're going to think if she can't spell right, how does she write? How does she manage to like publish another book? And now she wants to publish this thing. And so that's like, this is what you think because of one little mistake that really is common. Or, we've all experienced that as writers in some point,
My editor has written things and I caught a spelling error here and there. And I just kind of like chuckled or whatever. Like I didn't even think about it. I just fixed it and moved on, because that does happen because we're human, like we're not robots. So it's not a bad thing.
No.
But yeah.
I have two more points I do want to make. See, so the term like being afraid of success, like for me, that was always weird for me to understand, because I would always be like, I'm not afraid of it, because of course I want it. We all want it. We want to be successful in all these ideas and our writing projects that we have, big or small, whatever it is. I think my fear in that is always like, there's just not going to be enough people to see it, or the right crowd to see it, the right target audience, or whatever you want to call it. So it's like you have all that time that you're curating, and these things are being inspired within you. You're curating, you're creating it, and you love it, and you have so much fun doing it. But sometimes you're like, yeah, but who cares? Does anybody really want this?
Yeah.
Is it really relevant? Is this what they're searching for? Is this like, what they're praying for at night to read from you? Like, and you start to like think that you're creating for nothing. So it's scary when it gets to that point. Have you ever like felt that way? Like just like
yeah, of course. And that's why one of the things that for me, if it's specific to writing and creating, one of the things I do is I picture who I'm writing it for. And I really think about that, it's a made up person. Well, sometimes it's not, but usually it's a made up person. And I really focus on who I'm talking to. And I find not only does that make my writing better, because I'm more focused, but also I can tune out all those other people because it wasn't for them.
Yes. I love that. Because I've also heard like, just focus on the one. Don't worry about this. Yeah. Don't worry about the masses. And it's true. I know sometimes we don't want to hear this because we're so frustrated, but if you just touch that one person's life, or inspire them, whether you know them or not, whether you're aware that they're looking at it or not, whatever you're doing, like that is everything.
That's like a basic of writing too, right?
Yeah.
It's like when you're writing your book, who are you writing your book for?
Yes.
If you're not writing it for someone, then it's for you. And
Yes.
then why should anyone bother to read it?
Yeah.
So that's the idea.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's for you and your family, because, you know, your family's probably going to read it and you're going to read it.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you can kind of think of that one person, not the 10 million people, but that one person that you're going to help, it actually, and honestly, over time, it'll actually focus your writing too. Like, it'll just make you a better writer.
Yeah. Yeah. This is true. Yeah, I wanted to share just what I've been doing, because like it's ongoing. You're always going to add to what's going to work, because as you can see, there's so many different examples of what we're experiencing as, you know, writers and authors, imposter syndrome. So so this I draw from, again, connecting with, you know, my spirit guides. You know, I think about, okay, what is this block trying to teach me now? Like, where is this connected to? What started it? You know, where's the lesson in this round that I'm battling right now?
Yeah.
And then, you know, I go to what helps. So I meditate, and then I journal about what I'm meditating. I write poetry, which that I've talked about before. What birthed this book to be was that I was just writing to heal myself and from things in back in the day, but that would help me write poetry and what I'm feeling with this particular block. You know, talk to my guides. And like I said before, just try to also talk to people that have been through this, and like, you know, how do you manage this? Or like I said, listen to podcasts, because there's always going to be a different perspective of, again, how this is perceived and like how they go about, you know, getting through it.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, no, that's a great point.
Yeah,
definitely. So, you know, I mean, overall, my advice to people would be, if you're going through this, acknowledge that you're going through it. That's the first thing, right? That's the most important thing. And then just take some time to really focus on your work.
Yes.
And don't worry about the noise, the outside noise. If it's happening while you're writing, just focus on that one person that you're talking to, and even have a conversation, you know, have like a virtual conversation with them. What do they want to hear? What do they want to do? Put your work aside for a little bit, focus on something else, come back to it. And I think you really do come back with fresh eyes.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, you make a very good point. You really do have to sit with it. You can't stuff it down. You can't pretend it's not there. But you don't want to linger in it too long either, because again, it gets scary. But you just have to address it and just be with it, sit with it. You know, if you have to write it out, again, I know there's a lot of writing going on here, but write out how you're feeling, you know, and try to, we're writers, so use what we got. It's just like, try to map, like, you know, where you think all this is coming from. You know, maybe this is something from last year that's coming up again for you. Maybe it was last week. It was an hour ago. Like it could be everywhere, but just try to, like, not to freak out, and just sit with it and just take it as it comes, and go. We've talked about this too in other chats. Go do something else that's opposite of what you're doing, so you can come back to something with fresh eyes. Oh, I forgot. I walk in nature. So that's a big thing for me. That clears my head. Even if I don't have answers, I recharge. I also write when I come back, because I know there's something being sent to me in nature. So I do that too. So go outside yourself and just take a break, and then come back, and then you'll start to see, like, who you really are, like what's really there. So yeah. So hope this helps.
Hope this helps. And just wanted to thank everybody for joining us. Make sure to like and follow. Tell all your friends. Don't be shy. Share the video.
Yes.
And you can find Andrea at Soul to Page on Instagram, and that's soul_to_page. And me, Caroline Topperman, on at Style on the Side. And we will see you next time.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.